Let's open our Bibles tonight to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 7. We'll begin reading with verse 1. Judge not. That's where most people stop. Judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or what wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite. That's a strong word that means you're a two-faced liar. You put on one facade, but inside you're nothing but a hypocrite. First, cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. I've heard the verse much of my life. I still hear it occasionally. You'll say something and somebody will immediately say, "You can't judge me." I've heard it quoted, misquoted. I've heard it taken totally out of context. But tonight I want to try in as short a time as possible, I want to try to show you what this verse is not teaching. Then we will try to show the context of this verse in these verses. Then we will bring in other verses and show the context with other verses of the Bible. And then we will try to tell you what it really does mean. First of all, it is not saying that you can never judge anything that anybody says or does. I'm going to be pausing a lot. One is my mouth is dry. Two is, I want what I said to sink in to your mind. He is not saying that you can never judge anybody for anything that they say or do. And I'll give you some very specific examples later. If that was true, you can't judge anybody for anything, then our whole entire legal system would have to be brought down. How many of you have ever sat on a jury? Looks like you and I are it, brother. I have been on a jury several times, and what they ask you to do on that jury is to listen to the evidence, and then you judge whether you believe the person is guilty or innocent. On the juries I was on, it was about 50-50. One case, the lady in our church was the secretary that sat right beside the judge in the courtroom. And I told her afterwards, we said, the guy, you did not prove that he did it. And that next Sunday I thought, oh, I am going to get it. She is the judge's secretary. I am going to get it. And I went to her and I said, I just want you to know, we did not say he didn't do it. We just said the prosecutor did not prove it. She said, don't give it another thought. We knew going in our case was very weak, and we were not at all surprised. And it's like, if you knew it's weak, why did you go to court in the first place? But we were asked to judge this man. Judge, did he do it? Judge, did he not do it? So we were asked to judge based on the evidence. In verse 2, you will be judged yourself by the same judgment that you judge others. Imagine for just a moment, we had a judge in Texas. He was known as the maximum judge. If you came to his courtroom and you were convicted, you could bet you're going to get the maximum sentence that he could possibly give. Didn't care if it was a fellow judge, didn't care if it was the sheriff, didn't care who it was. It could be the mayor, and you still got the maximum sentence. That's just the way he was. He was, if you're guilty, I'm going to make sure you don't do it again. He got a lot of enemies. Lot of enemies. People in high places. And they finally found a way to get him out of office. And he and I were talking one day, and it's like, they got me out because they knew that some of them were guilty. And if they ever came to my court, I don't care who they were getting the maximum sentence. We had a DPS officer in our church, member of our church, and I loved him. He was a wonderful guy. I rode with him many times. But he was, if you're speeding, you're going to get a ticket. I don't care who you are. We often joke that he would give his own mother a ticket. Well, he actually beat that one day. He gave his own wife a ticket for speeding. He said she was guilty, and I would have given anybody else a ticket. I was not going to let her off. Now, I don't know what happened when he got home that night, but he gave his own wife a ticket because she was speeding. Now, imagine him who has given hundreds and thousands of tickets being caught speeding himself one day. And he goes before the judge that he just wrote a speeding ticket for. What do you think the judge is going to do? He's going to throw the book at him. You deal harshly, when your time comes, you're going to receive harshly. You judge a drunk driver, you sentence him to the maximum, and then you get caught drunk driving. What do you expect? You're probably going to get the maximum. In other words, how you judge others is how others will judge you, should the role ever be reversed. Imagine a CPA that reports everybody for every innocent mistake and then is caught embezzling. You see, he's harsh on everybody else. He throws the book at everybody else. He reports everybody else. So then, when he breaks the same law, I've treated everybody else harshly. I've been cruel. I've been mean. That's the same type of judgment he can expect. How you judge others is how others will judge you. Verse 3, judge yourself before you judge others. Now, I've used this illustration, but it still fits. How many of us have ever knocked a glass over and spilt the contents on the table? I have. Looks like every one of you have. Now, if I knock a glass over and spill the water, milk, Coke, whatever, and it's like, oh, I am sorry, I'll clean it up, and that's the end of it. Why is it when a child does the same thing, they get spanked, they get sent to their room, they get scolded for doing the same thing that you did? Well, they were being careless. If you knock over a glass, you probably were being careless. You see, if I'm going to judge my child for doing something, then I can expect to be judged by the very same judgment that I judge others by. In Texas, we had a neighbor, and he was about the same age as one of our boys. And he came in the house one day and something happened, and he let out a line of expletives that would embarrass a sailor. Well, you know what he got? He got his mouth washed out with soap, literally. And then my wife said, "Where did you hear such words?" And he said, "Oh, what was his name? Boo Boo? Bodie? Whatever the kid's name was. He says it all the time." Well, okay, let's find. His mom and dad cussed like sailors, and they wondered why he cussed when they cussed. You know, it's like you will be judged. Judge yourself before you judge others. Have I ever done anything wrong? Then I need to be careful judging someone else who does the same thing wrong. A parent that speeds doesn't have a leg to stand on when their child gets stopped for speeding. Who taught you to speed? Dad did. See, you need to make sure your house is clean before you try to clean somebody else's house. Do you always think the worst when you see someone out with a friend? I rode with quite a few female officers, and we would always stop and eat. Sometimes we would meet other officers at the restaurant. Sometimes it would just be me and the officer I was with. Can you imagine somebody drives by and sees me in Cracker Barrel with another woman that is not my wife? Can you imagine the gossip and the rumors that would be spread? Be careful before you judge me. And I'll give you why in a minute here. Before you judge someone else, make certain that your own house is clean. Verse 4. Many people are blinded by their own faults to the point that they cannot or will not see their own faults. They are so blind to their faults. I don't have any faults. I'm perfect. I have never done anything wrong. I have never speeded. I have never run a red light. I have never run a stop sign. Anybody believe that? No, the only thing, well, no, I better not say that because we're streaming. But how can I condemn someone else for doing the very same thing that I do? Now, I know I've told some of you. If you've heard it, pretend you didn't. Listen and laugh again when it comes. Years ago, I was working with the police, so I had my badge with me. I was caught speeding right here in Florence. The officer pulled me over and he said, "You know how fast you were going?" I said, "I have no clue." I really had no clue. So he saw my badge and he said, "Let me see your badge." I handed it to him. He looked at it and he looked at me and he looked at the badge and he said, "Police chaplain." "Are you a chaplain?" "Yes, sir." "Isn't that kind of like a preacher?" "Yes, sir." "Aren't preachers supposed to set the example for the rest of us?" "Yes, sir." "Do you think you're setting a very good example doing 45 and a 20? Do you think you're setting a very good..." He went on for 10 solid minutes. I went down to the police station next day and I asked to speak to the chief. I said, "Tom, would you do me a favor? Tell this officer next time I would rather pay the ticket than made to feel like a heel of some kind." Tom got a big laugh out of it. He thought it was hilarious. I said, "Tom, it's not funny." He said, "Oh, I think it's hilarious. And I'm going to give that officer a pat on the back." He said, "The reason for a traffic stop is to stop bad behavior. In your case, you would have paid the fine and kept right on going." He said, "But once he saw your badge and made you feel like a heel, that's been 25 years ago, and I still remember that, because how can I tell you all not to do something when I'm guilty of it myself?" Tell you what it did, it slowed me down drastically, because I am supposed to be setting an example. I said, "Oh, that badge got you out of a ticket." Yeah, but I would have much rather paid the ticket. I really, really would have. Before you criticize others, make sure you've got your own life straight. Before you criticize others, make sure you got all the facts. When I remember one night I was riding, it was New Year's Eve, and I don't know why the sergeant assigned us to this, but our job that whole entire night was to go from bar to bar to bar to bar and let them know we are out there. Do not drink and drive. We are out there and we will get you. I've never been in a bar in my life until that night. And we walked in and it's like, I hope no church members drive by and see me coming out of a bar. That'd be hard to explain, wouldn't it? Well, people judge without knowing all the facts. Why were you having dinner with a certain deputy? Well, because we were on patrol together and we have to eat. Make sure you know all the facts. Trustees and I discussed this at our last meeting. I can't even remember. It's been so many. The sign we've got out here, no parking, sports of all sorts. I have been called all kinds of things. I've been called not caring. You don't care about people. Your church hates people. You know, and I have had all kinds of things. And it's like, can I explain? When they let me explain, most of them have understood and said, oh, it makes perfect sense. They were judging me and our church without even knowing all of the facts. Do you find yourself always criticizing others? I know a man who's been dead now for many years. He criticized everybody. I had lunch with one of the deputies the other day, and we were talking and we were talking about people that they can do no wrong and nobody else can do any right. Y'all know what I mean? I said, yeah. I said, you've heard the example, the story. The wife could never please her husband. If she scrambled the eggs, he wanted them fried. If she fried the eggs, he wanted them scrambled. So one day she fried one egg and scrambled the next. Brought them both in, scrambled on one side of the plate, fried on the other plate, on the other side. He looked at it and said, "You fried the wrong egg." He got a big laugh out of it. Sorry about y'all. Some people criticize everything. They criticize everybody. They cannot say anything good about anybody except themselves. Before you have the right to judge others, make sure that your own life is in accordance with God's Word and in accordance with that which is legally, morally, and biblically correct. Do not correct me until you have got yourself correct first. Do not correct me until you have shown and demonstrated that you love me and your criticism is out of love to help me, not to just criticize. Verse 4, many people are blinded. I just read that one. Can you imagine a blind person trying to perform brain surgery? Now, it would be easy. They went in to do brain surgery and said, oops, there's nothing, we don't find a thing here. Let's close him up and go. But can you imagine a blind person cannot see anything, trying to work within the intimate capillaries and parts of the brain when they can't see anything? Back several years ago when I was trying to think which occurrence it was, I know I was in the hospital for like 5 or 6 weeks, came home. It was during COVID, came home, and I could not walk, literally. My legs were jelly. My hands were trembling. I could not hold my hands still. And I decided one night I wanted a glass of milk. My son was there, and he said, "Dad, why don't you let me get the milk?" I said, "I'm quite capable of getting it myself. Thank you." So I go to the refrigerator and open the door, and I get the gallon of milk, and I'm shaking all over the place, and I, use the walker to get over to the counter, and I put my glass down, and I'm trying to pour milk, and I can't hold that thing, and finally I had to say, "Nathaniel, I think it would be better if you poured the milk for me." Can you imagine me coming out of surgery, being in the hospital, being in rehab, trying to do brain surgery when I can't even hit a glass with a gallon of milk? Can you imagine me trying to operate on someone in that condition? That's what you're doing when you judge someone, and you're a lying, cheating hypocrite yourself. In verse 5, Jesus calls them a hypocrite. I said that's a very strong word. But that's exactly what you are when you try to judge someone else and correct everyone else, and your own life is a mess. Anybody that is always criticizing everyone else for every little infraction has a personal problem worse than the person they're trying to straighten out. Now, let's take our print shop, for example. We've got some very complicated equipment back there. I got a preacher that wrote me last week and said, "Hey, I live, 4 or 5 hours away. I can come up, spend a couple of nights, and help you out." And it's like, I really appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate the offer. But it would take longer to teach you how to run the equipment than you would be able to accomplish even in several days. Now the folder, especially the new one, have you used the new one? You haven't used the new folder? It is, remember how the old one you had to adjust it and adjust it? This one you walk over, push a button, push a button, push a button. It says, "You want a half fold?" Boom, 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 half fold. All right, I'm going to change it to a letter fold. Boom, boom, you push a button and it does all the rest. It's so nice, so nice. But the old folder that we had, you would have to line the plates up. Then you would have to adjust the plates a little bit at a time. Oops, overdid it. Got to unadjust it. Oops, did it too much. It would take longer to set the folder up than it would to fold sometimes. Now, can you imagine with the equipment we've got, somebody coming in that has never seen a copier? They have never seen a copier. They have never seen a binding machine. They've never seen it. Here's a binder. What's a binder? Can you imagine that person coming in, and how long y'all been working in the shop? 3 years, 4 years? And saying, "You've been doing it wrong for 4 years. I've never seen a folder, but I'm going to show you what you're doing wrong." You know what you would say? There's the door, buddy. Don't let it hit you on the way out. That's what you are like when you start trying to straighten everybody else out. When your own life is a mess and your own life is just full of hypocrisies. Now, let me give you an example. And I debated all afternoon whether to do this or not. I'm going to do it. If I get in trouble, I'll take the lumps. When we lived in Ohio, there were thousands and thousands of jokes. In fact, remember Jean? Yeah, Jean put a whole book together of blonde jokes. It's got a whole book of them almost. You know what you have if you put two blondes side by side? A wind tunnel. Ah, that's funny. We moved to Texas. The same exact identical joke became, what was that university that Tim went to? Anyway, the same exact joke was not a blonde joke. It was a Texas A&M joke. We moved to Kentucky and we got the same exact identical joke, only they were Buckeyes. Oh, you can't tell that today. You can't do that. You're prejudiced. No, I just like a good joke. If you want that book, I'll print out part of it. We had a guy in our church, and he and I were going somewhere. He was a gun distributor. He bought guns by the truckload and then distributed them to the various gun shops around the area. We were going to Houston for something, and I told a Pollock joke. Now that's a blonde joke in a different location. He's driving. He said, you do know I'm Polish, don't you? And it's like, no, Tony, I didn't know that. He said, I'm 100% Polish. I said, I am so sorry. I did not mean to offend you. He said, oh, Polak jokes don't offend me. He said, I tell them myself. I think they're funny. It's, whether you're blonde, Polish, A&M, Buckeye, we all like to laugh. But now, if you tell a joke, to that day, we still laughed until I left about telling Polak jokes to a Polak. That was, I got a hard lesson on that one. Nowadays, you tell a joke and you're a misogynist. How many of you know what that big word means? It means you hate women. You hate all women. So if you tell a joke, you hate women. You hate blondes. You hate Polacks. You hate Texas A&M. No, not at all. You're judging without knowing the motive and the reason behind it. People tell me preacher jokes all the time. Very good friend of mine. He's been to every one of our police appreciations. He's a lawyer in addition to being a deputy. He's a lawyer, and we used to meet for lunch. He would tell lawyer jokes. Deep down, lawyers are really nice people. This is one of his jokes. Deep down, lawyers are really nice people. Nobody's ever been able to bury them deep enough down. Now that's a lawyer telling jokes about lawyers. Does he hate lawyers? No. See, we have become so judgmental that we can't even tell a joke without somebody judging us that, oh, you hate so-and-so. No, you can make it nuts. You can make it squirrels. See, we have become so judgmental that we judge everybody as if they are guilty, which will get me to my next point. Don't judge until you know the facts. I mentioned the sign out here, which the trustees are already working to replace it. People think, oh, you hate people. You hate other people. No, we don't hate anybody. We used to let them use it. They are the ones that trashed it. They are the ones that left beer bottles. They are the ones that left a mess in the parking lot. And so we put the sign up, not because we hate sports, but we put the sign up because they were destroying our property. And so we put the sign up. No, you hate people. No, we don't hate people. Well, you put that sign up. That means you hate people. No, it doesn't. You need to know all the facts. Nowadays, it's called profiling. Oh, you caught a boy stealing groceries out of Kroger's. You hate him because he's a different nationality. No, I don't hate him. I caught him stealing, and I did what you're supposed to do. Now, let's quickly look at the context against the rest of the Bible, and you'll see, I hope, what Jesus is trying to say here. John chapter 7, verse 24, similar passage to the one we read. Jesus said, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." Don't judge somebody by what you think you saw. If you had seen me that night on patrol, going into bar, I didn't know we had so many bars in our area. You would have thought, oh, Brother Ellis is going to get drunk. I'm telling the church, Brother Ellis was seen going into bars. Get the facts. We were on patrol. We were on duty. We were warning them. Get the facts. Why was he hugging another woman? Because she just lost her husband and he was trying to comfort her. All you saw was me hugging another woman without getting the facts. I'll tell you, at the hospital, especially when, like it was last night, I'm going to hug everybody there. I'm going to hug everybody in the room. Even when I was working on duty, I could do what officers could not do. I could go in and say, your husband was just killed in an accident. I could hug them. Officers could not. I could. Well, I saw him hugging so-and-so. Get the facts. Get the facts. Everybody knows I'm a hugger. I was born a hugger. I was a hugger everywhere I've been. Fortunately, my wife is not the least bit jealous because I'm a hugger. Don't judge according to what you think you see. Judge righteous judgment. Things are not always what they appear to be at first glance. You may be missing the whole scene before or after. You may be missing the stress the person is under. You don't know what's going on in their life, in their mind, in their heart. And to judge them based on what you think you see is totally wrong. In Matthew chapter 7, same chapter we were in, verse 15, Jesus said, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." Jesus is saying here, you need to be able to judge between a sheep and a wolf in sheep's clothing. To do that, you have to judge. You have to look at the evidence. What is it? If it looks like a dog, barks like a dog, walks like a dog, smells like a dog, it's probably a dog. Somebody comes in and they look like a sheep, but when you examine them, you find out they're wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. You, especially as pastor, have to be able to judge and say, you are nothing but a troublemaker. Please go somewhere else. Don't judge by appearance. You may not have all the facts. Jesus goes on in verses 17 and 18 and 19 and verse 20. He tells us that we can judge a tree by its fruit. We lived in Texas for 5 years, and you were talking this morning in Sunday school about, you plant a tree and then you have to wait for the tree to grow. Pecans were like apple trees up here, down there. Pecan trees were everywhere. Do you know, and I've said this a long time ago, how long after you plant a pecan tree before you get the first pecans off of it? Anybody know other than my wife? How long does it take after you plant a pecan tree before you get the first pecans? Good guess. Wrong. 17 years. During those first 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years, you go out there and say, well, that's definitely a tree, but it hasn't produced any fruit yet. So I really don't know what kind of tree it is. But when those pecans start falling, and by the way, what you buy at the store are 20 years old compared to getting them fresh off the ground. Same thing with any tree. You look at a tree and it's got honey crisp apples on it. Look at that fruit. That's a banana tree. No, the fruit says it's an apple tree. You can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. And as we will see, well, let's go on. In Acts 20:29, Paul is talking to the elders from the church at Ephesus, and he's giving them his farewell address. And he said in verse 29, I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you. How do you know they're wolves? Because you judge their actions. If you can't judge at all, then you won't ever know that that's a wolf. But you are required to judge the wolf from the sheep. In 1 Corinthians chapter 5, and I'm not going to read all of these verses, there was in the church at Corinth a man who had committed incest with his stepmother. It was commonly known. Everybody in the church knew he was guilty. Paul said in verse 3, I verily, as absent in body, but present in spirit, have judged already, as though I were present, concerning him that hath done this deed. Paul said, I have judged him based on it is commonly reported. Now, last point. What can we not judge? I can judge your fruit. I can judge your doctrine. I can judge a lot of things. What judge not, that you be not judged. I cannot judge your motive. Don't have time to get real personal, but hopefully I'll get close enough. He or she is only doing that to aggravate me. How do you know that's their motive? Can you see their heart? Can you open up their heart and see written in their heart, I'm going to see how many ways I can aggravate Brother Ellis? You cannot judge their motive unless there is an overabundance of fruit that says their motive is wrong. He ignored me because he don't like me. I've been accused of ignoring people. And it's like, you ignored me and hurt my feelings. I ignored you when? Well, Sunday when I was walking out the door, you didn't shake my hand. Well, that's because my hip was killing me. My legs are going numb. My feet are swollen 3 times their size. And my head is splitting. My back is killing me. I wasn't thinking about shaking anybody's hands. Well, I thought you didn't shake my hand because you don't like me. You're judging motives without knowing the facts. You've been there. You know what it's like to... You're in so much pain that you want to get home, get some Tylenol, and get it in your recliner. You're prejudiced. That's why you don't like so-and-so. You're prejudiced. If you know me at all, I am not the least bit prejudiced against anybody. If you believe there are some things in the Bible that a woman should not do, then you must be a misogynist. No, I just believe the Bible, that's all. I don't hate women. But we cannot judge my motive. Anybody that's known me for any length of time knows that I have nothing but the highest regard for ladies, period. I can be at Walmart and I will stop and open the door for a lady that I don't even know. I don't hate her, I don't even know her. If you believe that homosexuality is a sin, then you must be a homophobic. No, I would give a homosexual, transgender, I would treat them just as nice as I would treat anybody. I just happen to believe, based on Scripture, that it's sin, but I don't hate them because of it. You all know we had a situation a few years ago, and when the person left, they told me that, you know what, you accepted me exactly as I said I was. You accepted me and treated me with kindness and love, even though I knew you disagreed with my lifestyle. You treated me with nothing but love and compassion. I don't hate them, not at all. Well, I've got a whole list of things, but you can judge my fruit. If I beat my wife up, take a whip, beat her with the whip, beat her with a hammer, spit on her, kick her, throw her down to the floor, try to choke her, try to stomp on her, and then get up and say, let me show you how much I love my wife. My mouth says one thing, but my fruit says something different. Do not judge someone's motive until you have all the facts and all the fruit. And just remember, you judge others harshly, and the day will come when you will be on the receiving end, and you'll be judged by the same standard that you judge